Now listen, the word legend, I feel like gets thrown about a bit too easily nowadays, but I think it's fair to say who I've got as a special guest this evening is a bit of a legend. Maverick Sabre. Hello, mate.
How are you doing? Love for having us on.
Anytime, mate. I appreciate you coming down.
Nah. Thank you for taking the time.
Anytime. And I think you're here with good reason as well. So, towards the end of last year, you dropped the Mavs version for Lonely Are the Brave. Yeah. So kind of like a 10-year anniversary.
10-year anniversary, yeah. So we kind of came, it was coming up to the 10-year anniversary. The original Lonely Are the Brave came out in 2012. And it was coming around to the 10-year anniversary, and there was kind of like loads of different options of ways that I was thinking about re-putting the record out. We were already going to do a tour off the back of it. That was a guarantee that I wanted to do anyway, and I kind of was thinking of different ways of approaching a re-release of the album, because I love the songs off that record. It marks a kind of, it marks the first moment, I suppose, in my career where a full body of work was able to get out to people, and kind of kick-started my career in one sense. And there was options of going and doing with an orchestra and doing stripped back versions of the tunes, which we did as well, but I've been independent since 2016, so everything released since then has been independently put out. And the idea was to continue that conversation, so we went back in. I don't own the first album. The first album was under the first label that I released it under. They had complete ownership of it. And I wanted to spark more of the conversation that kind of artists are having in the current time a lot more about the independent route. And putting my own funding into it and going back in and re-recording a record that I love, as close to the original as we could get it, with some new bits of flavour along the way, and sparking the conversation and then bringing that out on the road. So because
I was actually going to get onto the topic of the royalties and things like that, because for something I see such a masterpiece, it almost feels a shame to hear that you weren't getting no royalties, nothing from that. But I feel like you've taken a real positive approach in releasing this one, saying, well, actually, look, I can bring it to life again, and this time it's 100% ownership.
And like, look, this isn't to sit here and bad mouth labels or whatever, but a lot of deals that are the standard have been set up to not necessarily benefit the artist, and definitely not in the long term of an artist's career, in the best way. And to sit back and say, after 10 years of my debut record, that I'm not receiving any royalties from it, and I'm definitely not the only one in that situation. Sadly, it's a very, very common story. The kind of the ethos behind doing it was more than just doing it with this record, was to spark a conversation. I want to continue to do it, and continue to have these conversations with other artists that are either getting involved in deals for the first time, or are at my point in the career where they have to look back and go, some of my favorite records or some of my biggest records we don't have ownership over. In what way, in a business sense, can we change that or improve an artist's kind of legacy? That's where it was sparked from.
Love that, because it does feel like it's starting to become more common. I think with social media and things like that, there are more people kind of speaking up on the troubles that they've had.
Definitely.
In terms of releasing and labels, and I think it is important to kind of spread the message that there are ways of going about things, and kind of like looking for what to avoid.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, like, look, it's difficult. I watched an old interview with myself when I was like 19, 20, and I'd just been signed, and someone asked me in the interview about recouping and stuff like that, and my answer was naive, obviously very pure, because I'm just like, I was in for the music, which I always still have been, but my answer was kind of like, not in exactly these words, but it was more like, let everyone else deal with the numbers and the finances, I'm here just for the art. And that's beautiful in one sense, but then you're forgetting that I'm leaving everything up to someone else to look after my business and to know my business. When really we get, as artists, in whatever fashion, whether you're the producer, the writer, or the musician, every deal and every contract's business. So if you don't approach it in a business sense, then potentially we're being taken advantage of. Whether we're being purposely taken advantage of, or that's just the way the system is, we should know what our worth is. And it took me a long while to figure that out, and to learn the industry, and I'm still learning. So yeah, I think definitely this is more about making sure younger artists and artists my age or whatever point you are in your career avoid certain things, or just have the conversation to spark, so we've got a bit more knowledge going into stuff, so we've got leverage, because you know everything is a business deal and it's a transaction as much as it is the art driving it, you know what I mean?
No, 100%. I was actually saying to you before we started, because this album, the original come out and I was like 15, so it was like towards the end of my school years, so it's like a big part of my life, kind of growing up, and to see that you've done your own version to re-release, it was like it brought back all the memories of like being that age again and hearing all those tunes in a different light, because there was some, like you say, that they're pretty much identical on there, but then there's a couple I'll pick out.
That's them hilariously strong alarms that come on.
Big up the alarms going on in the background.
Yeah, go on.
So one of the tunes, sometimes. So I feel like the way you attacked the verses was very different.
Massively. Yeah.
So what made you go with attacking it in that way?
Do you know what? Like when I first sat down with it, I got a bit panicky. I was like, what have I done to say I was gonna go in and like replicate them as close as possible, because initially I was like, I'm going to do my own versions, I'm going to change them, but then that's not the version of the album that I love. The version wasn't I don't want to own a contemporary version of the album. I want to get as close to the original as possible. So we did that for like 90% of the album, but it was like, let me go. And sometimes when I tried to copy them, they just didn't have the same energy as the original. So I was like, right, these two I'm going to have to approach in a different sense, vocally. And sometimes was the first record off that album that was ever written, because I put Sometimes out independently I wrote Sometimes when I was like 16. I put Sometimes out independently when Channel U was banging back in the day, and then we put our own video out before I ever signed or anything. So when anyone ever saw the Sometimes early original video in Clissold Park, that was all independent before anyone ever got involved. So that has like got such a strong meaning to me in my whole life, because it explains I was born in Hackney, raised in Ireland, came back to London. I'm London Irish. I've got kind of like always had this like weird mix of an accent. It's like it shows a backstory to my upbringing. That's changed as time's gone on, because we mature, we grow up, we learn more about myself. So for me it was more like, how would the me now say it? It would be more like in how I'm speaking now, and more like,
because it was kind of like spoken
it's
word. It's
more almost spoken word, and that was like, for me, I was like, that there's something about now, that message connects with me more in a kind of more spoken word sense. And then with songs like Let Me Go, it was like trying to replicate the original. It just didn't feel like I was doing it justice. So with them two, we kind of took one little step to the left and kind of made it a bit more of a different feel. But with the rest of it, we tried to keep it as close as possible. Yeah,
I mean, I think you've done a pretty good job.
Love.
I've got to ask, because it has obviously been such a long time as well. Is there a track on the album which you'd say has like the most sentimental value to you?
I think like the obvious ones would be Sometimes and I Need, because they bring me right back to growing up. They bring me back to like before anything in an industry sense, or before I moved back to London when I was like 17, 18, and it brings me back to a place just before then. It brings me back to when I was like 15 in my bedroom in Ireland, making hip-hop beats, watching Channel U, listening to Dizzy and Wiley and Skinny Man and Clash and all that. And being inspired by that, and kind of telling my own stories just for myself at that point, you know what I mean? And they are kind of like a full raw explanation of how I was feeling when I was 15, 16. But then there's other records on the album that kind of like, that I feel like could have been on every single album that I've ever made since. They kind of maybe like topically or sonically kind of last, and I wouldn't have changed them that much, like Cold Game, Shooting the Stars, like all them. I think even if I would have made them brand new right now and they were fresh songs, I probably would have produced them the same way and they would sound the same. So
I think it's interesting you say that, because those two songs, I feel like with the other albums you've got, they would even
fit into them.
They would actually fit on there.
Yeah, so they are like sentimental in a different way, where I'm like, even performing them now, you know, I look forward to performing them songs because I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't do anything different now, you know what I mean? Some of the other ones I'm like, yeah, my styles change, or how I would sing it might be slightly different, but with them two I'm like, yeah, they would probably remain the same.
Love that. And I mean, with I Need as well, I know we're keeping that alive. We've had the Conductor remix as well. He's done a
big up Conductor, man. He smashed that. Yeah, like one of the big things for me always is I've never just made one style of music. Like I love dance music. I love, you know, garage, drum and bass, house, dubstep, and I've always had my foot in that world from way back to jungle with Pro Green, or like the Chasing Status Boys, Gorgon City, Shy FX, and I think one of the things that I always loved in the early album campaigns was doing all the remixes, because I like to hear like Let Me Go. I used to have it all I Need being played at like 3 o'clock in the morning on sets in Fabric or wherever it may be, and then the stripped back acoustic versions getting played on someone's Sunday playlist. And I kind of wanted to do that with I Need on this, and there's a couple more remixes coming as well, but I've always liked the idea of what someone else hears from a song and how they take it into their own space, you know. I think there's something magic in that.
Love that. I mean, you mentioned obviously all the different genres and things like that you kind of had your foot in the door with, and all the people you've worked with as well, like across the pond as well in different countries. There's one, I'll say relationship, which I've kind of noticed, which always interested me, the one with Joey Badass. So that, I noticed you two seem to work quite well together, and you've obviously continuously worked together. I'm quite interested to know like how that relationship come about. That
came back, this was like early days of Twitter. I was already a fan of Joey. I'd heard Survival Tactics with him and Steez. And I'd heard, I think he just put out a 1999 mixtape. And I remember we were following each other or something, and he put up I Need lyrics on his Twitter. And we just started messaging, and he was mad young. I didn't even realise how young he was. I was already young, so I was already like 21, 22, but he was like 16, 17 or something when he put it out. And so we started chatting, and after that he put out an EP called Summer Nights, and he had a song called My Youth, which the original version had a Collie Budd's chorus on it.
I remember.
And he was like, yeah, I want to do another version of it. Can you write a chorus to it? And that ended up becoming the main version that they put out. And we actually met for the first time, I think it was like a Vans event or something like that, but we met on stage at the 100 Club for the first time. It was the first time we ever met, was on stage performing a tune. And that was his first time in London. We connected, we kind of remained close. He worked on something for my second album. I worked on the tune with is it Diamond Lewis on his first album. So yeah, we did a couple of songs there, a couple of songs from mine, and then the relationship just grew from there. And that's kind of how it was all started through Twitter, really.
Look at that.
It just
stems from there.
And it was just a natural kind of a natural relationship, you know what I mean?
Because it feels like at any point there could just be another Maverick Sabre, Joey Badass.
Yeah, I think like for me, look, I can't speak necessarily for every single, because there's so many people that you end up as an artist collaborating with over the time, but I've always tried to remain, you know, and keep as organic relationships in place as possible with anyone I make, because I like, for me as a fan of music, I love when I hear people on a journey, you know, if it's like, you know, a Nas and a whoever, and I hear like in 10 years time Primo and Nas come back out with another record, I'm like, that's the journey of stuff that I find exciting, you know what I mean? So for me, there will always be a Georgia record, there will always be a Joey record or a Chronix record or a Shy FX record. There's always going to be that, because there are people that I keep in my life, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it makes sense. So in terms of going back to the campaign, because obviously that's still going on fresh, obviously we spoke about the tour. I've got to ask, I mean, I don't think I have to ask. I was going to ask how it was, but it looked, from the footage, it looked incredible. Yeah,
do you know what? It was beautiful. It was like, I think, you know, for an energy of a show, I was interested. It was the first time I did a tour in December as well. And I don't know if that like changes the energy of people, because it's like end of the year, people are in a festive spirit, and it's like, you know, people are enjoying their nights out more. But I kind of like, there was something special about coming back, because it was for me as well, like even going back to you saying about you being connected to the record at 15 and stuff like that, and everyone's got their own stories with that record, you know, especially songs like I Need, and sometimes it's like the journeys of that song and where they've gone and what, you know, points in people's lives they've taken that into. It's been the same for myself, you know what I mean? So to come back full circle and be able to do that 10 years, I'm, you know, even in the process of making the record, I was listening back to my 19-year-old self.
Yeah.
And like, I have all the outtakes, I have all the old vocal takes. So I'm like watching interviews of myself at that age that I hadn't done in years and hearing myself. So even for me, it was like going back to my own favorite album, if that makes any sense. Yeah. And yeah, the tour was everything I could have asked for. You know what I mean? It was like the crowd were part of the band that night, and they were singing every song. And I don't want it to stop with this tour. Just gone, you know. Hopefully I think we've got something in the pipeline for more Lonely Are the Brave dates. Part two, yeah. I think it's got another leg left in it, you know what I mean? Because there's something very special about the energy of that last tour. And then obviously with the backlog of vinyl, the vinyl's only come out in March, you know, it's only coming out in the next 2 weeks.
So it's not even reached?
No, so the vinyl, the physical hasn't even reached. CDs and everything, they're already out, and you know, it's obviously on streaming platforms and whatever, but the vinyl, because of the backlog of vinyl production, the vinyl's only coming out in the next 2 weeks, so there's another part of the story to be told with that, and we're doing some in stores. They're already all sold out, but yeah, we're gonna hopefully just kind of continue that and more dates around it, you know?
Wicked. I think I have seen you've got rough trade.
Yeah, we've got 2 days in Rough Trade, and we've got a couple of in stores in Kingston on Thames at the legendary Banquet Records.
Nice.
And we're going to be announcing some more in Ireland and up and down the country as well.
Wicked. So yeah, there's no plans on stopping the campaign anytime.
Nah. Do you know what? It was something like you know, obviously I'm not here to be doing bloody Lonely Are the Brave tours for the next 20 years, but there's something about a second leg of it that I feel right about. Where and when that comes, I'm not sure yet, but there's been a lot of love and there's a lot of people reaching out saying to do it. So, you know.
I can imagine in the other time though, you've still been working on other bits.
Yeah, massively. Yeah. I've got a couple of new projects dropping this year. We did my 4th album before Lonely Are the Brave last year that went down really well. Don't Forget to Look Up. And so we've got 2 more projects dropping this year. I've got a whole load of stuff dropping this year. Which is exciting in the dance world and in loads of different spaces. So yeah, this for me is the year of. There's something that Lonely Are the Brave and getting involved, and even listening back to my 19-year-old self. There's something by doing that last year that triggered me. I was like, in a good, positive way. I was like, you know, you're a musician yourself, right? You know, musicians, we're all exactly the same. 90% of all our music is sat on a hard drive with only 5 of our mates knowing about it. And for me, that concept, I've had enough of it. You know what I mean? I'm 4 albums in. I've just went back and redid my first album again. I'm like, this is the year of releasing.
Just get it out there.
Just get stuff out. And I don't mean just throw every idea that you can think of out against the wall. But I mean, like, for me, I can't be sat with music, you know, collecting dust anymore. So this is the idea of like getting all the elements of me out. I've got a spitting project, I've got a folk project, I've got a producer project. It's like, I can't be sat on this stuff anymore. And that's for all of us as artists to take in. It's like, we can't be, it's not good for us. I think we should be releasing stuff more regularly.
100%. Get it mixed and mastered.
Get it mixed and mastered. Nothing's perfect. And if we wait for it to be perfect, no one will hear it apart from me and our mum. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's it. Yeah.
That's it. That's like most of my beats, to be honest.
Yeah.
No one's really heard them apart from me, mates.
Nah, do you get what I mean? And then it's like, how many times is your mate in 2 years going to go, lad, whatever happened to that tune? And you're like, oh, it's not right yet, you know? So it's like, they don't care. The consumer is like, does it bang or does it not? That's it. And I'm not saying like we take away our kind of perfectionist ears as musicians, but there's only so much you can fine tune a hi-hat, you know what I mean, before the only one that cares is another producer who taps you on your shoulders like, that hi-hat, lad, that was wicked. It's like our mates are listening to it. It's like, does it click, does it bang or not? And that's it.
Simple. I think it was your Instagram actually. I see you've been working. It's like almost like a lo-fi.
It's a lo-fi beat tape. That's coming in the next couple of weeks.
Wicked.
And that was just a little like, I was like, nah. It was one of my mates was like, yo, he said it to me in a way. He was like, that's never coming out, is it? And when he said that to me, I was like, nah, you mad? What do you mean it's never coming out? I was like, but that was to myself. It was like, how have I done it? I'd done all that in a week in lockdown, clipped the video together for it and everything like that, and was like, yo, this lo-fi little concept beat tape, just me just having fun. I'm like, it's 2023, why is it still on my laptop? I was like, nah.
Time to get it out.
Time to get it out and just like, nothing's perfect, get that stuff out, tell the story.
Love that.
Yeah.
Do you know what, with all the genres of music that you're linked with and things like that, I'm actually very interested to know like what's in your playlists and things like that at the minute. I can imagine it's quite varied as well.
What's in my playlist at the moment, lad? It's pretty varied, I'll be honest with you. Like
I can imagine. I can imagine. That's why I'm very keen to know.
Like funny you were saying about grime. I've been listening to a lot of Cadell. Cadell's hard. I think Novelist is hard. Novelist is hard. I've been going back over his old catalogue and his new stuff. What else have I been listening to? Let me have a little quick look. I've been getting back into my my drum and bass and stuff like Caliber and Goldie and all that era, and then that early Scream and Benga era. I went back and what else have I been listening to? All the old Dizzy stuff. I went back over End at the Deep End, the Roll Deep album, which is a classic, and Devlin, The Art of Rolling, all that. That's
one of my favourite mixtapes of all time.
Yeah, and that brings me all that era brings me back to when I first moved back at 17. I was living with my aunt in Greenford, and I remember just I used to get the tube into the studio that was in Kensal Green or Kensal Rise. And that was what was in my ears all the time. So all that brings me right back. But there's an energy to it. You know what I mean? So that's been my playlist at the moment. And all the old, I'm a big jazz fan and a soul fan. And there's a new Ezra Collective. That record's hard. And so there's loads of stuff, man. It's a kind of mashup of everything.
I can imagine that helps with your creativity, though. All these different sounds and styles and influences.
I don't think, no matter what style of music we say we make, I don't think we should ever not listen to other things. I think we should always because even you you probably listen to a collection of an array of different sounds. It's even if you're making grime beats, you might hear something that's some folk tune that you're like, that's a hard sample, and then next minute then you've got a folk sample in a grime tune and that no one else has, because they might not have listened to folk, they might have just been listening to that, and it's I just think we need to listen to what you like, obviously, but try and keep it as broad as possible, because you never know what you might hear that might inspire something, and then that's the new fresh sound for you. Definitely. And keeps your mind open. Your
ears will know as well.
Your ears will know. Your heart, look, the beautiful thing about music is you don't decide if you're gonna like music or not. Music either hits you or it doesn't. It's not like you're gonna put something on and go, I'm gonna really like this. It's nah. As soon as it hits your ears, you either like it or you don't.
You have to feel it.
You have to feel it, as cliched as that sounds, lad. You do need to feel it, you know what I mean? Music chooses you rather than you choosing music,
Wicked. I almost feel like that's a perfect way to
end it there.
I'm gonna run the new version of These Days. That's another one of my favourites.
Sick, love.
So we're gonna run that, but I feel like you've given a lot of advice already to kind of I'll say all artists, not even just upcoming. But is there any other bits of advice that you would give to up and coming artists coming through the industry?
I would always say more than likely the team of people that you need around you is potentially the people you have around you already. We've all got a friend who's sick on Logic or sick at editing or likes a camera or is wicked on social media. Utilize the people that are around you that believe in you. Keep people around you that are dreamers and believers, you know what I mean, that don't have a ceiling, that don't say, oh, you can't do that, or I'm not sure about that. It's if someone's going to say that, make sure they're coming from a constructive place. If people are going to have an input on the art that you create, make sure that input is for your journey, not just because I don't think that's trending right now and I don't think you should do it. That should never be the case. It should be constructive criticism or something progressive for you as the art that you're making. The phone that you've got in your hand, as much as there's issues, with it, all of our screen times in this room is probably mental, so we shouldn't be staring at the bloody phones or screens that long, but in reality this is taking away loads of people's jobs in one positive sense, that we don't need the middle people anymore. You know what I mean? You can connect with your fan base and engage with your fan base through your phone. Like, utilize that. Don't be sucked in by it to the sense that it dictates what kind of music or what kind of things you should be doing. But utilize that in the sense of build your fan base. And like you said, it's like you either feel stuff or you don't. That is our guide to what art we create, what music we create. Do you feel it? Can you sit at home and play it to your mates and be proud of it and go, yeah, this bangs? Can you sit at home and bang the walls and be like, yo, this is hard? Because if you don't have that, you're going to get lost. Yeah. You're going to easily get lost. You know what I mean? If you try and make something because you think this is the sound of now, that's all grand and everything, but be prepared to be misguided at one point because you've got no intuition to, like, what's your gut saying?
You can't please everyone.
Nah.
So you've got to just go with what, like, say, you feel.
Exactly. And like the beautiful thing about streaming and social media now is there is a fan base for everybody out there right now. You don't need to have a top 10 to be a successful, you don't need to be a top 10 artist to have a successful career where you can live off music, have a successful life, have a tour career that can last however long you want it to. There's a fan base for everyone. We've got to find that and curate it and go towards that, you know what I mean? And just stay pure. Don't let anyone, especially people who don't make music, don't let anyone try and say, oh, you should be doing this because it's trendy, or you should be doing this because it's the in sound, like, because they'll be saying that for the rest of their lives with the change of every sound, you know what I mean? You gotta know what feels right to you and just crack on and graft. Like, for any young artists and music out there, it's consistency, graft. This has got to be your all, because there is millions of people out there trying to do the same thing. So like, the difference with someone who makes it or has a long-term career is the passion and graft, and it's not easy. Money don't come quick. It's not, you know what I mean? Everyone who's made music knows that, like, half of the work we do is for free along the way and along the journey, and it might seem sometimes that, like, you're putting in more effort than you're getting back, but that's consistency, graft. It'll pay off.
That's it. I think that's a pretty spot on bit of advice, to be fair. Wicked. Well, Maverick, I appreciate you so much for coming down.
Bro, I appreciate you having us, and good luck with your up and coming releases and stuff like that, bro. You know, it's a difficult thing enough to, like, create something. It's even more difficult to put stuff out. So yeah, congrats to you for even, you know, getting to that process. No,
thank you. And obviously, Lonely Are the Brave, Mav's version.
Lonely Are the Brave, Mav's version. Yeah, support independent artists. You know, even if you love the original, listen to the original if you want, no stress, but make sure you give a click and listen to the new one and support. Either come down to a show, get a vinyl, get some merch, support. And if it's not me and you can't stand my music, then support your local independent artists. You know, your mate down the road is selling CDs. Put some money in their pocket and we'll start with the grassroots. You know what I mean?
Love that. Love that. Maverick, thank you so much.
Big love.
We're going to leave the listeners with these days.
Love.